Now, the executive panel is what we're here to talk about. And this is a really cool part of the afternoon, because what you're about to do is you're about to almost eavesdrop in on a conversation of me with 3 senior executives here from Alberta, here in and around the Calgary area. And so here they come. They're going to pop up on the confidence monitor for me as well. But about to represent Blue Cross, you met her earlier today, Sandra Marocco, who is the Vice President of Marketing as well as Customer Experience. You're also going to meet, if you will, Jim Szautner, who is the head of the Dean of the School of Manufacturing and Automation, the School of Transportation and Apprenticeship, and then Deloris Hetherington as well. There we go, it's on the monitor. Thanks, guys. Vice President, Human Resources of Flint. So welcome them, if you will. Hello, Sandra, Jim, Deloris, welcome. Yeah, we can tell some of your team is in the audience. I love that. I absolutely love it. And so, Sandra, you've been with us already this morning. Thanks so much for being with us and sponsoring the coffee. Hello, coffee and tea people. Yeah, hello. That got us going this morning.
You're welcome.
So, yeah. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. What got you here today?
Excellent. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Great seeing everyone again. So I think I started my career many moons ago, about 30 years ago, graduated from the University of Alberta. Began my, leadership career in human resources. So that was originally where I started my career, and I think that's where I learned a lot about leadership. Human resources is all about the people, and so really seeing the dynamic, different leaders coming through. So that was quite an eye-opener. Lived in media and communications for the majority of my career, starting at the Edmonton Journal, working through the Calgary Herald, and every iteration that media took thereafter. So worked through a number of different roles there, and primarily throughout my career really saw the power of leadership in enabling me to be who I was. I started my family at the same time as I was moving through my career, and I had wonderful leaders empower me and encourage me to try and do different things. That led me later on in my career in media. I was lucky enough to be in Toronto to start Post Media Labs and work with a number of innovators there. So we were able to do that, and also created a spin-off, Content Works, which is a spin-off of Post Media. Decided that Media World was enough and moved on to higher education, where I was the Vice President of Industry Partnerships and the Chief Marketing Officer for NAIT, sisters to SAIT, and spent some time there, and then moved on, and recently, about a year and a half ago, I joined Alberta Blue Cross as the Vice President of Marketing and Customer Experience.
Beautiful. I mean, marketing, customer experience, absolutely critical. But what a journey that you've been through. And so I'm excited to learn, and I'm sure our audience, to learn how you got exactly where you got to. So thank you. Jim Szautner, I think I trashed your name the first time I said it there publicly out loud, so I want to own that. Names are so important. It's all we have left. So say your name properly. Jim Szautner.
That's correct.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get here today?
For sure. Excellent. So happy to be here today. And how did I get here? What brought me here today? Well, my Lindas brought me here today. So I have 2 very special Lindas in my life. I have Linda with a Y and Linda with an I. So Linda with a Y, Linda Holden, she's in the crowd here today. Hi, Linda. Didn't know that I'd be embarrassing you today, but she came to me during one of our one-on-ones and said, you know, I want to do something special for our leadership team. I said, okay, well, that's interesting. What do you want to do? I said, well, there's this thing come up in Calgary. It's about leadership, and it's called the Art of Leadership, and I wouldn't mind bringing the whole leadership group here to spend a day of professional development and learn together. So that sounds wonderful. That sounds great. Absolutely, I think we should do that. And she said, well, good, because I've already bought the tickets. So thank you to Linda for having the courage to do something that day that might have got her fired. And then there's Linda with an I, who is my executive assistant. And she got the email a couple days ago saying that, you know, the Art of Leadership is looking for someone to be on this executive panel, and you know, they're looking for someone from SAIT. I was like, yeah, that sounds good. You know, we should broadcast it out. You know, talk to the leaders. She's like, no, I think you should do it. I said, okay, well, why? She said, well, you know, I kind of like working with you, and I like your style and like how you lead. So I thought you might have a few things to say. So I said, well, let me sleep on it, and you know, kind of think about that. You know, very very humbled, and you know, very very honored that someone who was part of my group would actually say, hey, this might be something that you know, you could share. So I started to think about, well, my story, and you know, and then what brought me here or brought me to what I do today. And when I boil it down and think about the essence of it, it's been my ability to reinvent myself throughout my career. I started my career in the skilled trades. I'm a red steel truck and transport technician. And so literally I started under the bus. That's
Well, we know where you're going to end your career now.
yeah.
Started under a bus? Yeah.
Yeah. So perhaps in certain regards there was nowhere to go but up. But through that journey, I really started to learn and embrace what it means to be a mentor, what it means to be someone who helps grow and develop other folks. And it was really that essence or that root of working through an apprenticeship program where I would learn through the journey people that were part of my work group. I would learn from them, good and bad. I would also, walk along their lines and sort of see what the rules of the road were. But I really fell in love with this idea of learning from others and then becoming someone who could then impart knowledge onto other folks as well. And that really started, I think, my first sort of footfalls into onto my leadership journey, which then started to create opportunities where opportunities that work came along to become a lead hand or do that kind of stuff. Take greater responsibility on the floor, to eventually really starting to fall in love with education and training and became a truck engine trainer for Finning. And I did that and became really enamored with teaching, and started to see the parallels with teaching and leadership, and eventually that facilitated my way into SAIT. And probably one of my greatest lessons was when I first started out at SAIT as an academic chair, and that's when I started to realize that all the things that I had done to that point that made me successful to that point weren't the things that I needed to continue to do to help me continue to be successful within that journey. The more I knew, the more technical knowledge I would obtain. I take all the technical courses. Those were all great to help build my expertise, in this case as a subject matter expert in that field. But what it didn't help was with learning how to lead people. So what I quickly realized was I became the bottleneck to my own success. When everything had to come up through me, the team was always only as strong as I could be. So essentially the whole became lesser than the sum of its parts. And I had to take some time and reflect on that and really start to reimagine who I am as a leader and start to re-identify. I almost lose your identity and start to go down this path of what leadership could be. So when I did that, I learned how to empower others, how to take other folks and learn from them, have them take the lead, empower them, sponsor them to do more things. And what I learned from that journey was you could now as a leader become a multiplier, because it didn't all have to run through me, it could run through other folks as well. And continuing with that philosophy throughout that leadership journey then came to the next pivot point where now becoming the dean of a school, and you still need to empower folks, but you now need to look at it from an institutional level and from an organizational level. And that's where I started to learn that you had to start to stop telling people what to do and starting to learn to ask better questions. So that's a quick summary of what brought me here today was my two Lindas and being able to reinvent myself.
Well, we're glad you made it. Thank you, Lindas. Appreciate that. Yes, absolutely. And Deloris Hetherington, again, my apologies. I don't know that I got your name right when coming up. I was working hard with my memory. Vice President of Human Resources for Flint. Some of these people may not know exactly who Flint is, but who are you and how did you get here today?
So thanks so much, and it's such an honor to be here. It's my first time at this conference, and to sit on the panel is absolutely, what a thrill. So great leaders and speakers this morning, so a pretty hard act to follow, but we're going to do our best, I'm sure. So my career, I started my leadership career, well, first of all, I was born and raised in Saskatchewan. I'm a farm girl from northern Saskatchewan, so don't make fun of my accent. So I think a lot of that really instilled work ethic, just community, right? So that, was really instilled in me at a young age. My leadership journey actually started way back when, in the early 2000s, probably a little bit earlier than that, but what I call the call center boom. Everybody remember the call center boom? So I was fortunate enough to work for Neiman Marcus out of Dallas, Texas. And for those of you who don't know, Neiman Marcus is a high-end department store. Or was. I don't think they're in business anymore. But they'd have this fantastic, fabulous holiday catalog that would come out. And so we had a call center in which we would hire people during the holiday season to come answer the phones. And what a great job for those people, because Oprah Winfrey would call in, share, right? And they'd get so excited. There was like special submarines you could buy if you were super rich. You could buy submarines. So it was such a great opportunity to work there. I had worked under such an awesome leader. And then I moved into oil and gas. So that was quite a transition from retail, Prada and Louis Vuitton, to hard hats and coveralls. It was quite a transition. So I worked for KBR Canada for about 10 years. And in that role, I was responsible for HR, I was responsible for labor relations. And as a young woman at that time, I remember sitting in union negotiations with about 40 white men trying to find my way. So, the struggles of women over the past 20 years, I felt that, but things are changing and there's more momentum. So after I left KBR, I joined a company called Clearstream Energy Services. Now, Clearstream is a legacy company that's been around for a long time, a bunch of different acquisitions they merged together and brought together to become Clearstream. I'm proud to say today, as of one of those acquisitions, we are now, as of today, effective right now, Flint Corp. So a lot of people in the industry will recognize the Flint Corp name. So it's really special to be here today and just to celebrate that. So.
Awesome. Again, glad you made that trek and journey.
Yes.
Yeah, a long way from Cher and Oprah to where you are today.
Oil and gas.
to us here.
I'm from Saskatchewan as well, so another stat for everybody. At least 2 out of 3 panelists are from Saskatchewan.
Oh, wow.
All right, let's hear it for the Alberta girl on the panel.
Yes, yay! Yeah, you are not that Katie Lang song, that big bone girl from Southern Alberta, but you are our girl from Southern Alberta. Glad that you're here. Awesome, awesome. Well, I guess shamefully, I'm William Grant Williams from Fort William, Ontario. There you go. That's a birth name. But anyway, let's connect in. Deloris, maybe we can start with you on this first question. So, given that we are here at the Art of Leadership, what do you believe are the most important attributes for successful leaders today?
I could rattle off 100, right? But for me, leadership is, there's some of it that's actual natural, right? That's in you. Some of it is learned, but then a lot of it is caught. Where I get my leadership is I caught it from other leaders, right? Their fire, their passion. I worked for some really great leaders, and I worked for some duds, to be honest, right? And I found that when I was working for people that weren't passionate and weren't, worried about my growth and potential and development, I kind of got stagnant, right? So I'd rather work for somebody that I can catch that passion and drive from. So, also trust, integrity, consistency, and self-awareness and development. So my team's gonna laugh, but I used to say quite often that I prided myself that I was a macro manager. I thought, a macro manager, you're empowered. I'm not gonna bug you. You're gonna do your own thing, find your way, right? So over time, I'm learning that doesn't work, right? They're struggling, they don't have no direction, and they're frustrated, right? So, self-awareness, I think, is important in your own growth and development, so.
Awesome, thanks so much. Jim, your thoughts on attributes of a leader today?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I was reflecting on the art of leadership and what that is, and I think we heard Sean saying I can't define what the art of leadership is, but yet it so aptly describes what leadership is, because leadership is an art. So when I started to think about that, well, like what is art? And art's an expression. It expresses who you are, it expresses what you feel, it expresses your background. And I think the artful leader does exactly that. Often when I think back my own journey, even in the early days, I always thought about like the leader who I wanted to be, the leader who I wanted to emulate, and there was a bit of this sort of fake it till you make it type of soundtrack going on in my head around how I should be as a leader and how I should act as a leader, and that was okay to get my start, dip my toe in the water and try out leadership, try out different styles, learn from other leaders as well. I remember going home one day and calling my mom, and she she was very instrumental in my journey and being like, Mom, like, I can't work for this guy. Like, it just, and then I would, go on a rant and rattle off all these things that were, that I didn't like. And her response was, that's great. So what'd you learn? Because you can learn from folks who perhaps don't exactly jive with your leadership style as well. And I think it was part of those sort of steps in the journey where I started to shed that armor, become more vulnerable as a leader, and really become comfortable in my own skin. And that's where I feel like that expression piece comes out as leadership, when you're able to stop being that leader who you think other people want you to be, and be the leader who you are.
Mm. Authentic leadership, and you're tapping right into Brene Brown for me, and I don't know which is more powerful, the vulnerability or the courage to be vulnerable. I don't know, it's an interesting balancing scale for me, so you look like you have a comment or a reply to that, Jim.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up, vulnerability and courage, because you have to have courage to be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And what that does is that inspires courage in other people to also be vulnerable as well. So I don't think it's an either-or conversation. It's more of a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, and even the word encouragement, the word is courage, the center of it, right? So, Sandra, what about you? What about those attributes of leaders today that you're really seeing are necessary?
Yeah, I think, to echo, what my fellow panelists have said, but to hone in on vulnerability, I think particularly what we saw a few years ago, leaders in the room who were having to grapple with an unknown situation. For the first time in my career, really honing in on the unknown and not knowing how we were going to lead. So, echoing the vulnerability, I think that was a moment in time where we had to say, we just don't know, and I'm scared. I'm really, really scared. At the time I was at NAIT, 40,000 students walking through our campus, 3,000 staff who were all looking, what's next? What are we going to do? What's happening with my degree, my diploma, my employment? We didn't know, we didn't know. So really embracing that vulnerability, I think, was important. Empathy, as we talked about. And I think for me as well, spending 25 years in an industry that I grew up in, that I knew it well. I knew the details. There wasn't a lot I could go into that I didn't understand the business well. And then moving to a completely different industry in higher education, surrounded by academics and everyone who knew so much. I had oversight over the applied research centers, so brilliant minds who were working on, oil sands sustainability and all those wonderful things. I knew nothing. I knew nothing of that. So I learned immediately that greatness was in the agency of others. And I think for me, being a leader who really understands the greatness isn't with us, it's with everyone else. And so whatever we have to do to empower all of those around us, things we heard today, a lot of what Yasmin talked about, allowing the voices to be heard, and that's being vulnerable and courageous to that, but also understanding that our role as leaders, it's not about us, it's about the greatness of the others. So I think that's probably the strongest thing, that as leaders, I think we have to embrace that.
Wow, some brilliance already, and so I can only imagine where this conversation is going to go. I want to dig into a bit of an issue that we're currently experiencing right now. With many of our workforces having transitioned to remote work these past few years, organizations are now cautiously approaching a return to work to the office. How can leaders best balance the preference to work remotely with the need to physically be present? So maybe, Jim, we can start with you. What do you see as the future of work right now?
Yeah, the future of work is certainly a topic of conversation that we have on a daily basis of what does that look like. And when I think back around the different iterations that we had, so it would have been March 13th, 2020. That was the last day we were on campus. It was Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
We should have known better, right? What could possibly go wrong? That was the last day that we were all physically on campus. And so by March 19th, we had flipped everything. Everything was online now. It was illegal, actually, to come on campus and teach students. So you can imagine the pressures that puts on an education of applied education. It's really tough to be hands-on when you're behind your computer screen, especially when those hands have to be on have a hammer in hand to do your carpentry work, or to a wrench in hand for your engine, whatever it might be. So we had this disruption happen to us, and I remember being in the management council meeting saying, okay, well, you're gonna have to expect lower productivity from your people. Everything's changing. People are gonna work online now. It's gonna be different, internet connection, et cetera, et cetera. Then you fast forward that to, this previous February sort of springtime frame when we started to bring people back on campus. And I was sitting in the management council meeting again, and okay, people, so you need to be prepared for your folks. There's going to be lower productivity and all this because people are going through change, and now they're coming back on campus, so they can't just click the Zoom screen, and now they actually have to physically go different places. So it was really interesting to sort of look back and think about how that transition happened from, going online and then back to face, and what that meant. What I also heard though was from students and from staff too is like, I'm not comfortable being around you. I want my 6 feet of physical distance. I want my masks on. I'm more comfortable on my computer. So we said, just give it a try. Meet us where we're at. We'll meet you where you're at. And as time went on, people became much more comfortable. Say, I'm starting to really appreciate this. I'm having that water cooler conversation again with someone who I hadn't talked to in a while. I'm meeting someone face-to-face for the first time. Actually, I met one of my colleagues today face-to-face for the first time, who started with our organization through the pandemic. So we're starting to create these opportunities to create more of these human interactions. And when I think about the future of work is, the one constant there is we're still human. So whether you're online, whether you're face-to-face, whether it's in any other sort of mechanism, I think it's along the line of creating those human connections with each other that will help see us through. We heard it from all of our speakers this morning around caring for people. In education, there's a motto that many instructors hear through their adult education training, and that is, the students won't care that you know until they know that you care. I think there's a lot of wisdom in that statement, and a lot of that wisdom can also be applied to leadership as well. If you're going to win hearts and minds, like we heard from General Hillier, people need to know that you care about their hearts and minds first. So when I think about the future of leadership or the future of work, it really comes down to this human connection, which really has been with us this whole time.
Wow. Awesome. Thanks, Jim. There's some good lessons and some tweetable moments there, actually, as well. Deloris, what about at Flint? What's been happening with the return to work, and what are you seeing as a future
it's a hot
work?
topic, for sure. Right now, so at Flint, we have about 2,800 employees that work for us on any given day. It's less than 5% of those employees who are eligible to remote work. So it's a small number, but it's a conversation that we have every day. When do they come back? So they're on a hybrid right now, but we're finding people aren't, they love being at home. And even to get them to come downtown Calgary, they don't want to do that, even 1-2 days a week, but they're coming. And nonetheless, so there's a lot of things that you really, as a leader, when you have remote workers on your team, I think it's really important to connect with them. What I find and what I see, even I have a team of about 30 people right now, and I don't able to connect with them as frequently as I can because they're remote working. There's boundaries. We had a conversation today with a manager regarding boundaries. And when do you set a meeting? Do you set a meeting at 7 a.m. just because they're at home and you think that they're going to be available, right? It's really watching those boundaries for those people, as well as taking into consideration an introvert versus an extrovert, right? So the introvert wants to be in the office. They want to have more interaction because that's where they get their energy from. The extroverts, they like to be at home and they like to have their cameras off, right? So really monitoring those employees as well, identifying who's an introvert, who's an extrovert, and how you can get them more opportunities to either work alone, work with people, and support them through that. As far as what is the future, I think for Flint, the future for this less than 5% is still to remain hybrid. What we're finding, my recruitment director is here so she can attest, what we're finding is it just gives us more opportunity to find people across Canada for some of these roles, right? Payroll, even recruitment, right? We can find people that can work, in Newfoundland, in Fort St. John, different areas. So it just opens up more avenues for us. So it's here to stay.
Hybrid's here to stay for you. All right, good stuff. Sandra, what about at Alberta?
I think I'll just, so at Alberta Blue Cross, we were moving hybrid well before the pandemic. So for us, it was really just an acceleration of that. And I think we've read and seen a lot about leading a hybrid workforce. Maybe the perspective I'll give is being a leader starting in a virtual world. And I will tell you, it's very difficult. I think, leaving when I was an executive at NAIT and we all went off campus, I had already established trusted relationships with many of the team. Coming into Alberta Blue Cross, I joined sort of at the height of the pandemic. Everything was virtual. So I was walking into virtual rooms, not knowing anyone, just seeing faces. And as a leader, one of the things that I really rely on is establishing relationships and establishing trust. So I think as we hurry to embracing hybrid where that's possible, I think as leaders, we also have to check, what does that do to ourselves as a leader? How does that make us appear? It's better now, but we are still very hybrid at Alberta Blue Cross, and I'm still craving the time to learn. And I think my learning curve, I'll say, is not as steep as I would like it to be in terms of learning the industry. Those serendipitous moments where we bump into each other and say, I didn't know that about you, because meetings are so deliberate. And so I have found that my ability, and I guess the qualities that I'm an extrovert, so the ability for me to connect and build trust with the team has been much more challenging. So I think as leaders, we need to look at that. I'm all for flexible work arrangements, I'm all for hybrid, but I've had to really check my ability to lead in that environment where I didn't have the human ability and that. It's getting better, but I find that it's taken me a lot longer than I would have liked. And in other roles where I've transitioned into leadership, found it much more easy. So I, as a leader, will tell you I'm challenged by it, and I think we need to keep looking at how we continue to learn the positives and the negatives around that.
Yeah, I too might be an extrovert a little bit. Yeah, lots. And I love being together with people in person, but I also have to say I love my business mullet. I'm so gonna miss my business mullet, like a nice dress shirt and a vest on top and then shorts on the bottom, bare feet and under the desk. Nobody knows what's going on down there, right? So.
As a shoe person, though, I will tell you, it's really nice to be back in person. I have missed that. I've channeled my shoes sort of on the ledge just to make them a part of the conversation.
Hey, it's whatever, as my dad would say, cranks your tractor, right? So if it gets you going. Deloris, I'm going to come to you first on this one, if you will. Employee retention rates, given this whole hybrid environment, critical roles remain unfilled. The evolution of our workforce and workplace, seen employees have higher standards and greater expectations than ever before, with organizations under pressure right now to retain your top talent. What can leaders do to retain and engage their people?
Yeah, this is a hot topic at Flint, and we've spent a lot of time reworking our people strategy, our long-term people strategy, as well as our core values, mission, all of these things, just along with our rebrand. But absolutely, you have to be a little bit more creative. We did an employee survey last year, and there were some things that came out and really resonated. It was DEI, huge, ESG, right, and work-life balance. Right? So we're building our attraction retention programs around those types of models, as well as, again, we have a high number of hourly workforce that works out on the different sites in the field. So that's a primary goal of keeping and retaining these folks. So what we've done is, again, being creative, we put together what we call the Workforce Coordination Program. And so a lot of our guys and girls will come work for us. It'll be for a short period of time. It's for a turnaround, which could be 5 days, could be 30 days. And at the end, they'd go away and then go work for a competitor, right? We want to keep these guys. We want to continue to build our brand. We want them to retain them. So we have in place what we call the Workforce Coordination Program. And so when they're done at one site, we'll move them to another, and then to another, right? So we've been really successful. It also decreases the amount of people that we have to recruit. Between April and October of this year, we recruited 2,000 new people to cover for this turnaround season. So this workforce coordination program is very important to us, on a couple different aspects, but primarily to retain these people that we need.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, really keeping the top talent is a challenge. Eric, you're going to hear from him. I trust that Eric is in the building, and we'll find out, really talking about, holding on to those top people that you currently have. So critical. Anything else you want to engage in that part of that conversation, Sandra?
Yeah, I think I'll just add to that. We're really looking at the holistic well-being of our people, recognizing, and I think we heard it again this morning, recognizing that the whole person is coming. So we've got the body, the mind, the heart, as we heard, coming and bringing themselves to what they do at work or during those. But we're really focused on the overall well-being, the holistic well-being, understanding the spiritual elements, the financial elements, the intellectual elements, all of those things that encompass the well-being of a person. And we're finding that that's really helping us retain our employees. It's helping us attract employees as well of a certain kind who really are focused on purpose, are focused on finding that intersection of what they do during the day for pay intersects with who they are as a person and really meets with their personal purpose. So particularly as we're looking at the younger workforce, this really matters to them, who they are and what they value. So we're finding that there's a lot of competition, so we know that people can move from one site to another site, and that's coming with ease. We're really trying to look at the core elements of, more of that heart. How do we keep them engaged? And that really is honing in on overall well-being and their purpose really matching the purpose and the mission of the organization. When those are misaligned, I don't think any tactic can really hold them. So it's really finding and attracting those who are committed to your purpose and then being able to continue to feed that.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thoughts as well, Jim?
Yeah, sure. So working in a post-secondary, especially with the having the portfolio for apprenticeship, I get a chance to live at that intersection between education and industry, and I get a chance to listen to and from a lot of industry experts and what they have to say. And the struggle for talent is real. It's out there. But what I hear a lot of is sort of like 19th and 20th century thinking to try and solve 21st century problems. And they all say we want to attract the best, we want to get the best, and what they try to do is poach each other's talent, journey people in this case. And really what that ends up doing is becoming a zero-sum game where you just start to rearrange the deck chairs. And they start to see lower retention because if someone left someone's organization to come to yours, what's compelling them to stay with you? The research shows through Canadian Apprenticeship Forum that when industry invests into the development of their apprentices, they see on average about $1.84 return on that investment. Not a bad return. What they also see is higher productivity from those folks and greater retention of those folks because now they're ingrained as part of your corporate culture. They know the system. They have they bring their kids to the holiday parties, to the Christmas parties. They're ingrained in that culture, so they stay with that culture. So what comes to mind there is like the old adage of when's the best time to plant a tree? A decade ago. Well, when's the second best time? And that's today.
Yeah. Absolutely. You're actually reminding me of Sir Richard Branson when asked, what happens if we develop all of our people and they leave? And his response, what if we don't develop them and they stay? Like, how frightening would that be? It's like, wow, So the Art of was actually launched during 2008, which was a global financial crisis. And firsthand, they know about learning and development budgets are often the ones that are cut, the first to go. So we often hear that people are the organization's best asset, but as budgets get tighter, what can organizations do to further develop their leaders? Sandra, maybe you can open this one up for us. Really when we need them the most, what can we do to develop these leaders when we don't have the money to put into true talent development programs?
Yeah, I think if we are faced, the first thing I would say is I hope we've learned that those shouldn't be the first dollars to go. So I think there has been something. I think the learning culture that we're all embracing speaking to what Jim was talking about, the return on investment, I'm hoping we've come a long way since then to really understand that. So I would say the first thing as leaders is fight for those budgets, fight for whatever they may be. But there's also opportunity within the organization. If you're in a larger organization, there are opportunities that you have learning opportunities within. There's mentorship opportunities. There's cross collaboration or secondment opportunities. I will look to my colleague here. I know at SAIT when we were talking a while back about, again, the talent drain, we were looking at how might we transfer employees from one to another. So there's options within your organization as well that sometimes don't necessarily come with a big learning and development budget. It comes with a will. It comes with an understanding that our teams are craving development. They're craving learning. They're craving a continual growth. I go back to that sort of that human element that rides across all people, and that is to know that you're contributing, to know that you're bringing value to the organization. And so there are so many creative ways we can do that. Don't cut your budget first, but if you had to, there are creative ways to look around, to look at your colleagues within the industry, who might be open to that kind of thinking and say there's a lot of opportunities for us to learn from one another outside of, traditional kinds of training that you have.
And so, Deloris, what about at Flint? Are there things beyond the traditional, or are the budgets being cut there as well? What's happening for your world?
Yeah, no, the budgets are not being cut today, so very happy about that. They're actually being increased. So we were able to invest some leadership talent who has come into the business to help us grow, our development program. So, at Flint, we are all about developing our people. I just echo what Sandra says in regards to be creative, right? Use your monies wisely, but also be creative. Call on your other leaders to mentor, put people in stretch assignments. There's things that you can do without a lot of money being spent, so.
Awesome. Jim, you have additional?
Yeah, sure. So I think the nature of the question also provides an opportunity for us to really rethink of how we think of people. To say that people are your best asset actually commodifies people. And I think it goes back to that comment around using 19th or 20th century thinking to try and solve 21st century problems. If you continue to look at your people as commodities, as something you can buy and sell and trade, you may be missing the mark. There's been a lot of talk about things like the Great Resignation and quiet quitting. I think was another one that was mentioned, and we've all heard it said. People don't quit the job; they quit the boss. Well, I think that's also taken on a new iteration as well. Is because of the transformation that people have all gone through recently. Is they're not just quitting the boss; they may also be quitting the environment that your work provides as well. And if they feel like they're only a number on a spreadsheet, or they feel like they are a commodity, perhaps they may want to go and have their services go to somewhere where they don't feel that way.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's interesting. We do say people are our greatest asset, but from a finance perspective, where do the people show up? On the liability side, because we have to process that payroll. So, Deloris, maybe we can bring it together in our last couple of minutes here. As you're looking to the future, what are you excited about?
Oh, I love this question. There's a lot to be excited about, but I guess from a leadership point of view at Flint, what I love to see is the multi-generational workers, right? And how we can, at any given time, we could have 4 generations working for us, from sweeping the floor to, running payroll to doing different things. So just drawing on those types of different experiences and people in different generations and honing our own leadership experiences from them. So I think that's exciting.
Awesome, beautiful, thanks. Jim, what about for you? What are you excited about?
Yeah, absolutely. So what really excites me is also looking at that next group, that next generation of leaders. The vision that I created for myself as a leader is to be a great leader who develops other great leaders who have the capacity to develop great leaders. So what makes me excited is to start to see people who I've invested in now start to also pay back that investment as well and start to develop other great leaders too. And for me, that provides great personal satisfaction as again, that takes me back to my roots as an apprentice. And to see that cycle happening now in real time, that makes me very excited.
Don't get back under that bus, Jim. Do not get back under the bus. But yeah, to leave a legacy of the next generation of leaders, I think is absolutely brilliant. Sandra, bring us home.
Yeah, I think, again, to echo, I was lucky enough to, walk the halls of an incredibly talented group of youth, watching what's coming is absolutely exciting. How this next generation is looking at solving problems is very, very different than many of us in the room. And to watch their thought process, to watch, frankly, their fearlessness, to watch their desire to not fit into norms is so exciting. The solutions that we're seeing coming from this next group of leaders, this next group of workforce, is inspiring. You just sit and take some time to walk the halls of any of our beautiful post-secondaries in this province. Give them a challenge, and you'll be shocked at the way they think. It's completely different. So echoing that, I think our youth, there's much talked about how horrible it is, and it's not at all that. There is such an aspiring and inspiring group of leaders coming up that the more we can give them space, the more we can give them time, the better we'll all be.
Beautiful. In a word, I have hope. This is good. So you've just been eavesdropping in on a conversation between 4 executives. How'd you like it? There we go. Awesome. So thank you so much. We appreciate your time. Enjoy.